Guru Bema Siddhi Lo Jizun Jobara Jenje Labdu So Chelandu Jobara Jenje Labdu So Lam Joba Zevara Jenje Labdu So Yezo Jarvara Jenje Labdu So page 12. Gwazanda Zengara Shire Zembe Magara Jemba Nyejoma Suza Nanya Enderden Jaza Zogade Namla Zawa Ende Damze Namdo Jojo Deje Bema Ngujen Jamjan Jenze Wain Bero Ngana Lord Dayen Jere Zevan Kaja Doje Wazayen Jura Zevan Dayure Droba Zevan Nubende Jeza Yandra Genjera Namarane Sujazana Zoga Dharma Daimba Mejana Radna Shire Daimbe Mahangana Samden Janze Noji Darjen Jeme Doje Zai Sonjo Droba Sangarambo Wanjun Durjan Nandra Zewan Zenjanga Lame Jezonja Nanjo Vajan Zewan Zaja Lama Se Chenwa Lai Meje Gube Zeje Zode Danye Ngajuru Jo Wame Jeje Yang Bodane Desa Sanje Ganje Mawai Muzendenze Save Lame Jabla Sovande Chanza Wada Chuje Jawada Jeza Yera Gujen Zawa Yengewa Jonze Dag Bondan Jedag Janjo Jengwa Zaje Bejen Jojen Medodan Rera Lej Nyende Jemba De Sanje Jende Meden Bowa Drogen Namda Jenla Jebara Jo Yedam Radna Menda Ganeya Daya Zemje Nanje Sambada Loye Jeda Jedaraba Jejo Demo Deba Chujin Golo Gordozo
Kashi Banda Dope Choba Yemen Chodan Sabju Duran de Majaba Tam Judu Zenzo Chimbo Kensur Sumchi Jarden Sante Gindu Juga Chawach Meshe Tebe Kala Chancho Bardo Da Varanyan Tusum Sanche Tamche Jungo Reta Jungro Janta Shabda Kadrin Soba Meba Barze Savela Marimboche Shabji Dultima Meba La Gosumu Kuba Chimbo Chasar Jabs Chu, Dada Dorje, Loma Namji, mentioned Tora, Chenjel do Solo, Mensuji, Jepotan, to some Sanjakon Jingo, Ye, Ransom Chokon, some Danzava, Savella, Meshalo, Solo, and the Conjo Dopa Power, Chenjelo, Zedin Chichi, Charava Serge. Dale demo Mombarab, Salneka, Tenju, Sholo, Doba, Lodo, Bendawa, Zardo, Sora, Kanset, Tower de Bam, choosing children today. Gombo Jame Chonyene, Keme Baria, Tawara, Show Namalai, get on Lutan, Ujinki, Trumpum Tata, Make and Namton, Drawa Kunji Draki, Chisam, Tamje get to Daki Chutento. Mazu Sanje Be Jinju Soke, Ten Kalchishu Chela, Che Che Nin Cheatere. Che Che Ne Nyen Nyen Nyamsolang Nyamsolang Chobatop Ne Taibe Simcha Tam Che Sanje Kompala Good Tobayore Tezabe Zavati Che Che Dambe Che Nyen Chabala Tanara Yore Che Bayang Golon Nabrataba Goni Chego Nyamba Pejo Golon Nabrataba Goni Nyengo Chenye ke kulong te number takwaye na sheji chue ti ke jang ten semla nyome be nyembo yinda bare te nyomo tulgire te so sa chue che nyen che ate azu sanji be ke le chawa 탐제 지난 된 갈치슈 de chue che nyen che ate bare.
Those of us who are followers of the Buddha, there is something that's extremely, extremely important for us, and that is the teaching of the Dharma and receiving of Dharma teachings. For Buddhist practitioners, this is something that's really, truly essential, because it is on the basis of having listened to the Dharma that we put it into practice, and through practicing it, we achieve accomplishment. And once we have achieved accomplishment, then we have the capacity and the capability of establishing all sentient beings, all countless, limitless sentient beings in the state of awakening, the state of Buddhahood. And the root of being able to do that, the root of all of that actually comes down to this practice of teaching the Dharma and listening to Dharma teachings. When Dharma teachings are given, the motivation of the teacher is extremely important, and it must be completely pure. Likewise, the motivation of the students must be completely pure. And if we receive Dharma teachings with a very pure motivation, then because the Dharma itself is a remedy to the negative emotions, if we receive it with a pure motivation, then it will function precisely in that way, as a remedy for our negative emotions. It works, actually. And so for Buddhist practitioners, for followers of the Buddha, in fact, among all of the activities that we may engage in, the teaching and receiving of Dharma teachings is truly one of the most important things that we can do.
조사 딥장 시에 그림만 보여래 차 차려 거래야 야야 칸데 계절 되네 짐바타야 추춤소야 라 소바 알아서 냠래 그림만 보여래 강가 된 칼버 처리해 뒤나네 칼치 침배나네 치슈데 퇴섬 기샤랍데 땡과래 퇴섬 말이 문슬린 퇴섬을 때네 마리부 무바데 셀네스 사다 남지 연대지 줄을 잡아샤발라 퇴선 그 샤라말라 뜨과 땡고와에 봐서서 퇴선 그 샤라티 신도네지 가르쳐 버려라.
We followers of the Buddha need to exert ourselves in gathering the accumulations of merit and wisdom and purifying our obscurations. There are many, many different ways in which we can gather the accumulations and purify our obscurations. There are practices like, for example, making prostrations or circumambulating, reciting, doing recitations of prayers, practicing generosity, practicing discipline. These are all methods by means of which we can gather the accumulations and purify our obscurations. And all of these practices and many, many others are extremely important. But most important for us, for our practice, is actually to rely upon the wisdom that arises through having heard the teachings and contemplated them. Studying and reflecting on the teachings is essential. It is said that study and reflection is the lamp that dispels the darkness of our ignorance. And so we need to listen to the teachings, and we need to contemplate them in order to dispel that darkness, the darkness of our own ignorance, in order that the qualities of the paths and bhumis that lead to the state of awakening, in order that those qualities can arise within our own minds and within our experience. We need the wisdom that comes through listening to the teachings and contemplating their meaning.
말아서 샤차 연대를 장네. 지단기 샤차 연대를 장네. 다 정부 정부 반조 롱조 라서바여. 담년다여 삼식이어래. 에 텐다버지 여대여 바르테 심으로 잡아잖아. 륜데니 종악만도 싶어버려 종악알수 야르샤바지래 내갑장 마도 땡아라 배제하게 왕매바래 그런 종악알파 퇴고하래 셈세겐테는 출대하래 메덴발라 덴버스 메탁발라 딱버스 미상와라 참말 딱매발라 딱든지네 딱 출배 나와 출나쳐 버지셨네 제마타네 네 오 마셔가 버들라 출배 나와 출낭 다다 제네 버드지 나와도 출낭 샤 출배 출수 단다 샤바 나셔리 저 출바다 사월 샤발라 퇴성 그 샤라마 말라 마드바 솔와다 바타 차 살바타 짐바다 와다 수집소와 라소바 장배기 출낭데 식두고요 말에 출나한테 얄두고요 말 출배 나와한테 식받다 얄로 잡아라 출수르도 시한 거래 출수르도 시에네데 말줄로 잡아래 록벨로테 말록발 잡아래 록벨로테 가래 미탁바 땅진 딱 버리자마자 록벨로래 덴버르자마자 록벨 미자와래 맞을 딱배 록벨로래 딱tunjembelote 록벨로테 말록바 잡아래 말록 받쳐발라 셔럽 퇴상구 셔럽을 땡거래 된들 소자 퇴상구 셔럽 땡술 때 가르쳐 버려 대야 도모게 테이프 값으로 라니 내바 잡신 듯이 가르네 말이 인요슈키 세디어 단다 말이 인요슈키 세데 출배 나와 셔르다 대 말이 인요슈티 세블 쳐발라 이시지 두지 대 담비처 개회신이 매박해박한 듯이 라니 내가 찹생긴 듯이 담배 취면 매삼박한 듯이 투성감소는 매사동 그 듯이 시다 말아서 용수랑 바당 락바르트 감들을 셔차데 내년에 딱금 스탑받침 냠래래 다 대받침 냠래데 냠래기 짜와테 갈르트버리 sana 마담 카타냐 베심체 탐지 마 생스 마 Rinpoche 다대 마대 신도내제 진천보래 진천보라라 자샤마 마니 나나나 차나차 또나또 랑키 부드 마나와 마사와지 초나 마시네시 부드 마시와지 초나산 매 랑키 부불 할레베게 제동천보 롱아 예수님 거네 매기 진시 장샤버에 뒷침부치 예바 셴네 셴나 심전 탐지 마마셔바 매바 손자 심전 탐지 침부치 셴 침부치 대다 대바 대완되고요 동안되게 직장면도 얘나 대위 주 가래 잡아다 인주 돈이도 베셔 코나를 떼바래 땜바래 대마시 동안 그 주도 차삼 차담으로 임바래 대 샤만도 손에 동안은 만나 줘봐요 년송 그 동안에 쇠라매봐 토리 사담이 라마이 르텐라야 대지 지 여바이나야 지 사제 그든 대지 땅난기 대지 줄제기 대지 아라드네베 제일 아라드네베 그 당시 제일 딱바다 아텐데 그 동안을 그라신지 마돈 돈나 마키스 날메네 야기 세비제바 파트 코르베심지 마케심지 다음지 동안 나봤나 소반 용고요로 야랑아 샤르차 대답은 마케심지 텐서 타르바다 탐지 집에 콤발에 님메그네 수그 다테그 거버체발라 된 다당 가라나 셔럽게 밍멘도 탑지 강라멘도 다 셔럽지 미다 탑지 강라 데버체발라 다 자시 chanchusen pi chöpala chene sherp nabra thapante samatongman yeredu tap nabra thapante jinsu parudu chama ngaredu tetabu jasi chanchusen pi chöpa chusul tingi jangne kantodu chöne majur nakutampi simchante chanchu chimbo kompalangi chine jang tobar chao sampi kolon yapu juyobayina kolon tela tene chö che nye gom ru kare chabatam chö shenden chö yang tapa chaga yore 대소서 꿀롱때 신도 내지 가르쳐 버려 대소사 아주 산지백 최체내 값을 야야 꿀롱 쥐고 와다 자줄라마 소와 답고 와다 제라 오와도 몰음 된 거야 돼서 더 신도 내지 가르쳐 버다 편받쳐 버려 봐 소자 아주 꿀롱도 쥐줄 때 야야 쉬고 좀 센티네 버려
In the world, sometimes we might think, oh, well, I have got some education and some learning, so I'm so clever, I've gained some wealth, I have some possessions, I own some things, I have a little bit of fame or name or renown, so then we somehow think, I have these things, I have this name and fame, I have some wealth, I'm intelligent, I have some education. Well, we might think like that, but if we really investigate on a more detailed level, even this body is basically borrowed from the 5 elements. We can't keep it. At a certain point, we're going to have to give it back, even this body. And so, actually, all of those things that we somehow think that we are in charge of and own, it's really a mistaken perspective. We have a body, but it doesn't even belong to us. We have to, at some point, give it back to the 5 elements. We have a mind, and yet our mind is deluded. Our mind is confused. We think things are real when they're not real. We think things are going to last when, in fact, they are impermanent. We think that things are clean, which are, in fact, unclean and impure. And we think that we have a self, and we don't. So we're deluded. These are confused experiences, deluded perceptions. And basically, from the moment we're born until we take our last breath, most of us spend our lives deluded, confused, completely caught up in these kind of deluded experiences. We call this the bardo of this life, the intermediate state, which is this life. And it is a state which is one of confusion, delusion. We need to clarify, to purify that delusion. We need to get rid of that delusion and that confusion. And the way to do that is through the wisdom that arises from listening to the Dharma and contemplating it. That's the method for clearing away our delusion, our deluded experience. You can't get rid of your confusion and your delusion. You cannot completely clear that away just by praying. You can't get rid of that just by doing prostrations, just by being generous, just by being disciplined. just those kind of practices, only engaging in those kind of practices, is not enough for truly clearing away our delusion. We have to completely remove the basis for our delusion. Our delusion, our confused experience has to completely fall away. It has to completely collapse. And in order to do that, we have to actually know how we are deluded. We have to understand that delusion. We have to understand the confusion in order to be able to be free from it. That's the first step. So we have to know what is a mistaken perception in order that we can come to have an unmistaken perception about that thing which we were formerly mistaken about. And so what is mistaken perception? What kind of mistaken experiences do we have? Well, again, we think that things are going to last. They're not. They're impermanent. We think that things are real. That's a mistaken perception. Grasping to impure phenomena as being pure, that is a mistaken perception. And holding on to the idea of a self, believing that we have a self, this likewise is a mistake. So those are mistakes that we make. Those are incorrect perceptions and experiences that we have. We have to then transform them into unmistaken perceptions, into knowing how things truly actually are. And in order to do that, there is no way but to listen to the teachings and contemplate them. We need the wisdom that arises from study and that arises from reflection. So how, actually, do we go about doing that? Well, in accordance with the fundamental vehicle of the Buddha's teachings, it is taught that when we listen to the Dharma teachings, we should regard ourselves as someone who is gravely ill, who has a serious illness, the illness of ignorance. We're afflicted, we have drunk the intoxicating water of ignorance, and we are drunk on that intoxicating liquid of ignorance. We're drunk, we're deluded, we're sick, we're extremely ill, and we need, of course, a remedy for our illness. We need the nectar, the ambrosia of wisdom, in order to clear away this intoxicating, poisonous water of ignorance. And so that nectar of wisdom is nothing other than the sacred Dharma. So we should regard ourselves as someone who is ill. We should regard our teacher as a skilled physician. We should regard the Dharma as medicine that can heal our illness. And we should regard practicing the Dharma as actually taking that medicine. So these four perceptions are that one should have when listening to the Dharma teachings are quite renowned. And it's very helpful for us actually to listen to those. But here, in this context, in the context of the teachings that we are receiving, actually, on the key points of the view and meditation of the definitive meaning, this is a practice, the instructions that we're receiving now are instructions in a practice that pertains to the Mahayana teachings, the Mahayana Dharma. And so here, when we receive Mahayana teachings, always at the outset of the teachings, we are reminded to bring to mind all mother sentient beings, equal in number to the vastness of space. Mother sentient beings. This term mother is actually really important for us to bring to mind. The idea of a mother's kindness. A mother's kindness knows no bounds. When we think of the way that a mother treats her child, for a mother, it doesn't matter if she's hot, it doesn't matter if she's cold, if she's sick, if she's hungry or thirsty. What matters to the mother is her child. She's concerned only that her child is not cold, that her child is not too hot, that her child is not hungry or thirsty. Even a mother will think, it doesn't matter if I die, as long as my child does not die. A mother's kindness is like that. And so the kindness of a mother that she shows physically, verbally, and mentally to her child is unbelievable. It's incredible. And we are meant then to recollect the fact that every single sentient being has been my mother. And that means every single sentient being has been as kind to me as my mother has been to me. And thinking about the kindness of a mother, we should give rise to the wish and the aspiration to repay that kindness. And we should think about the fact that all of my mother sentient beings who are so unbelievably kind, who have been so kind to me, all of them want to be happy. Not a single one of them wants to suffer. And yet, the causes of happiness, which are cultivating love and compassion and the wisdom that comes to a genuine realization of emptiness, those causes that bring real happiness, my mother's sentient beings do not know them. And they get caught up in the causes that bring about suffering, which are nothing other than attachments and aggression and stupidity. These afflictive emotions, they fall under the power, under the sway of these afflictive emotions that result in suffering, my kind mothers. And they experience tremendous suffering, the suffering of being born into the lower realms, which is actually inconceivable and unbearable, the pain that beings experience in the lower realms. And even in the higher realms, being born as a human, as a demigod, or as a god, yes, we may have some pleasure, but it doesn't last, and it's not real, genuine pleasure. It's just seeming pleasure. It's defiled, and it won't last. It goes away. And so we should think about the suffering that all of my mother sentient beings experience. The pleasures of the higher realms, just like licking honey off a sharp razor blade. When we taste the honey and yet we cut our tongue. That's what the pleasures of the higher realms are like. They're actually suffering. And so we should reflect upon the fact that all of my mother sentient beings, whether they're born in the lowest hells or in the highest peak of existence in samsara, they are never free from suffering. They experience tremendous suffering. And reflecting on this fact should inspire us to give rise to the certainty that we will and we must free our mother sentient beings from that suffering. We should think to ourselves, I will do it. If I don't do it, who will? This is my responsibility to liberate my mother's sentient beings from that suffering. But the problem right now is that I don't have the eyes of wisdom, and I don't have the legs of skillful means. And without the eyes of wisdom and the legs of skillful means, I don't have the capacity to lead all of my mother's sentient beings to the state of awakening. So in order to do that, in order to be able to do that, in order to be able to gain the ability, I myself will take up the practice of the path of a bodhisattva. I myself will come to the realization of profound emptiness, gain that wisdom. I myself will train in the other 5 perfections that constitute the aspect of method in order to gain the ability to establish all sentient beings, my mothers, in the state of awakening. I will do it. I will place them in the state of perfect Buddhahood. So that should be our motivation. And having that kind of motivation when we listen to the teachings, when we practice meditation, if someone is teaching the Dharma, whatever kind of Dharma practice is being done, if it is done with that motivation, then it's real practice. If we do it with that motivation, then it's genuine. And so our motivation is really important because that's what makes our practice genuine Dharma practice. And that's why also in the beginning of the teaching session, we go through these practices of supplicating the gurus, the root and lineage gurus, and being reminded of the motivation at the beginning of the teachings. That's why we receive instructions and we receive a reminder of that again and again. And then at the end of the practice, we dedicate and we make aspirations and prayers at the end. The point of these aspects of a teaching session is so that we can really ensure that when we receive Dharma teachings, we correct our motivation and we come to the teaching session with the appropriate motivation, that kind of pure motivation, because this is really extremely, extremely essential.
심전 탐지 파마 마셔봐 매바 손상 쥐부치 마치 타르바다 탐지 심배 건방 조버 쳐발라요 상제의 심전 가진 중간에 쳐봐야 받아 마세 배 심전기 심기 시를 주니 대신이 여바래라 상제지 공 토라야 주니 대신이 여바래 로버 추르도 지팀이 딥 마딥 즉 마도 상제의 심전 니딱 시직 봐야 바래 그래서 심자 탐지 상제로 마음의 장주 선바다 세마 다좀 받아 좀마 너나 상제로 제 바래 대서 심자 탐지 양 라당나 장거라 상악 값을 라버도 당아서 변나바 상제바데 택받침 버튼 될 상악 truyền 냠슬랑가 여바상 소사 당낭 생한테 답변 나와서 생한테 임바네 매번 말해 심전 탐지 심기 시를 주니 대신이 여바래 심전 탐지 상제로에 봐서자라 다 바래 그래서 중세 망벌 때문에 심체 파마인배 진보체 받아 타르바탄 탐지 잡아도 버쳐발라 상제의 심체 진치 주지고에 받아 심제게 심기 시를 주니 대신이 얘는 여바랑신 지여다 바래 로버치 트로도 때문에 딥잠마다 상제의 심체이 있으면 열매와 중세 마부 돈 타입의 심전라 심전티 질 림포체 인줄 마치베 심자탐지 상제로 인술하고 삼 허르톰나 되게 가르팽이 선한테 념베 똑소 제당 라버트 가서 좋아합니다 아저도 차도 생한테 야야 아저도 차도 얘기 사들 남지 연지 줄을 저버려 케이크 치슈 칭에는 아저도 탁도 되지요. 저섬 저섬 검수 시럽 간지 때네요. 야 아저도 탁도 되게 저섬 때 수요가 저섬 부셔라 돼서 아저 신 저섬 약부도는 탁도 신 저섬 맴매발라 녀죠. 근데라 대신도 지로 검증 연된다. 제 랑 추tum이하고 송하는 아저 신 추tum이하고 송고여 봐라 탁도 신 추tum이하고 마송하는 치수 녀주서 너는 다 대답을 념 또서 야야 아주 담배 주샤마 도발라 파치 첨부쳐요 된다 소장 잠년지 장주선배 기지선배 토네 다낭에 대한 가르쳐 버려라 가르쳐서는 깜들이 셔자때 대파 첨부된 절벽이 녀된지다고 하면서요. 녀된지다가 냠슬렌 소로서 대소자 마주나게 타다니 besim체 탐지 자주 침배 공부하는 거 비치들로 다 다른 아래 트가 주고요. 치디 녀된지다고 냠슬렌 소리도 냠슬로 치다봐 또 도르진 돈지 시차왔던 게데 측측 니가 측다 되니까 만으로 몬틀바 얘기하고 퇴바치네 퇴베텐데 섬라서 잔네 타입의 심제 대다 자주 침바 공부하는 게 진짜 좀 거버죠 녀베 그런 거 지심베 돈데 semper 나오쇼
All sentient beings have been our parents. They have been our mothers and our fathers. And for that reason, they've been tremendously, or at that time, they were tremendously kind to us. All sentient beings have been tremendously kind to us. So that's one reason that we should think of them with kindness. And another reason is that if we want to attain liberation and omniscience, actually from that perspective, the perspective of being able to practice and attain this, sentient beings and Buddhas are equally kind to us. Without sentient beings also, we cannot attain the state of omniscience. Another reason is that actually all sentient beings have as their basic nature Buddha nature, suchness. It is the basic nature of every single sentient being without any exception. And it is simply the fact that we, as sentient beings, in our case, that suchness is stained by temporary stains that can be cleared away. And when those stains are cleared away, actually we are nothing other than Buddhas. So in fact, the only difference between the basic nature, there is no difference between the basic nature of sentient beings and Buddhas, simply that in the case of sentient beings, that basic nature is obscured by temporary stains. And therefore we should say also, we can say also, that all sentient beings have the capacity to awaken to Buddhahood. All sentient beings are in some sense future Buddhas, future bodhisattvas, male and female bodhisattvas, future male and female arhats. All sentient beings actually are future Buddhas because we all have this capacity to attain the state of awakening because we all have the same basic nature, this basic Buddha nature. And thinking about this, then, we should train in pure perception, training in having pure perception towards every single sentient being without any exceptions. This, of course, is a practice that pertains to the Vajrayana, but in the Tibetan tradition of Buddhism, we practice the Buddha Dharma in terms of all three vehicles of the teachings, including the Vajrayana. And so we train in pure perception. And training in pure perception, we shouldn't think that we're somehow making things up. It's actually a fact that beings are pure. We're simply training in cultivating the ability to see them in the way that they actually are. Why? Because, as I just said, all beings have this same basic nature. Suchness, Buddha nature, is the basic nature of all beings without any exception. And that suchness is simply obscured in the state of beings, but the nature is identical to, in fact, the nature of Buddhas. And so all sentient beings are able to attain awakening. We are future Buddhas, we can say. So when we think then about the kindness of all sentient beings, that's one reason that we should we can bring to mind when generating the aspiration to place all beings in this state of awakening. We first should think about their kindness, the fact that they have all been my mothers and my fathers, and they have been tremendously kind to me at that time. And then we can think about the fact that in order to attain awakening, if I myself want to attain awakening, Buddhas and sentient beings are equally kind to me as causes for the attainment of my own awakening. And third, we can think about the fact that all beings have the same basic nature, suchness, Buddha nature. It's naturally present within every single sentient being, without any exceptions, this very same basic nature. It is simply that it is stained by temporary stains, but in terms of their nature, there is no difference at all between Buddhas and sentient beings, none whatsoever. So all of these reasons can be beneficial and helpful for us also in coming to cultivate pure perception towards sentient beings. And if we can remember all of these reasons, if we can think about all of these reasons, then in which beings are truly and tremendously kind to us, then what is the benefit actually? How does it help us to think about these things? How does it help us to reflect in these ways? Well, first of all, it actually reduces our negative emotions. The negative emotions in general, but specifically, it's very helpful for reducing our pride and our jealousy. Otherwise, pride and jealousy and the negative emotions get in our way. They are obstacles that prevent us from attaining the qualities that arise as we traverse the grounds and the paths that lead to awakening. Those afflictions, pride and jealousy, are our obstacles, and so we need to clear them away. And contemplating in this way is a very beneficial remedy for those kind of afflictions. Otherwise, if we learn the Dharma and we become a little bit learned, let's say, and because we have learned something, we become proud, and then we think, oh, actually, we look upon other people who haven't studied and we sort of look down on them, thinking we're better than them. Or if somebody has learned more than me, then we start to feel a little bit jealous of that other person. We feel competitive towards people who have similar learning or experience to ourselves. Then that really, actually, that's an obstacle for our practice. Same thing with discipline. If we're really disciplined and we become proud of our discipline, thinking that somehow we're better than others and looking down upon people who don't keep the discipline in the way that we do, or feeling jealous if somebody else is more disciplined and feeling competitive. These kind of things, this is an obstacle to our practice, and these are obstacles that we encounter, actually, in our practice, those afflictions. And so if we want actually to be able to practice the Dharma, we have to avoid falling under the sway of those obstacles. And so we need to really be able to train in and cultivate love and compassion and bodhicitta. It's very important to do so. Training in pure perception is very important for us. It's extremely helpful for our practice. And here, in the context of receiving instructions on this text, it is a text that explains the view and the meditation of the definitive meaning. So again, that means this is a practice that pertains to the tradition of the Mahayana. And we have to bring to mind, as we listen to this text, the motivation that we have to have, the motivation that we should have here is thinking of all mother sentient beings, all of my mother sentient beings, and giving rise to the aspiration, the wish, the resolve, in fact, the commitment to place all of my mother sentient beings in the state of awakening. So that's the attitude that you should have when you listen to these teachings. The reason why I'm listening to these teachings is in order to practice them so that I can place all of my mother sentient beings in the state of perfect awakening, in the state of Buddhahood. That's why I'm doing it. This should be our motivation. When we receive these instructions on this text, the heart of the matter, the unchanging convergence of vital points that shows exactly how to apply the view and meditation of the definitive meaning. We should take to heart the words of these teachings, apply directly to our experience the meaning of these words. So hear the teaching, apply it directly to our mind with the motivation that doing this, I will establish all mother sentient beings in the state of awakening. So please listen to these teachings with exactly this motivation.
Sanjeji zeba, koi zeba, sunken zeba, tuji zeba, zeba chibo sumyore. Te naanaya, zeba tamche nana chotu chorba, dacha simche, nekab to tautu ki dungar tadale, chob tuke. Tenchi, zoba sanjeji komba top toya ka zawan robate, tine jeshe, napa sunken jeshe re. Sungin jeshen tin jaba tamche nana chotu chorbare sanji sungin jaba tin jiten kamla tarshi jedu yana sanji usu shukata cheme bare sungin jaba tin jiten shikana meba yana sanji usu shal shukba yana ya anek shira penton bare jaba tamche nana chotu chorbare sungin bare tela tin jabe kanjur chenpo ti kondir tenjur tene tela ya tene 제 dorna kata tenju gongwa tarchur talbekita sura mambo jebare pe kanjin jonggeji 이게 돌아 치타 mambo jebare te nane aten dordena membership 왕 저버치버 티 심비 민티 membership 왕다 저버치버 티 센터에 감들이 저버치버 티 티텔라 녜던지 따검스요. 따와 롱르 기텔라 마파바체네. 롱르 파타타 땡치 가 파타 드바 가샤 빵숨소 망보젤 때 마테바 차조 우숨게 따와테 라메 맹아담 맹아 라마 코마초게 맹아 투랑 아시 똑바 투랑 아시니 샬네 년디 주베 맹아사모 녀든기 따금 냠슬렌술 딱 저라서 셰다와 장켄서 하고 요래 따와 센터 따와 센터 제도 어선 따와 나셀레한테 따베기 야와 망보 되네 대단한 제바체고베 제술 따와 찍찍을 쓸 넘출 따와 롱데리베 건네 파주 골와체베 제술 따와 되네 공바 줘봐 되는 제부 따금 준비가 남샤 여바랬다 단데 녀든 찾으신 분 녀든 조바치 녀든 오마치 그 로다르트 제네스 냠술렌 술 제다르렀던 바 살포 치다르렀던 바 도르진 든지 네 내가 강가 순두대백사 소데 Rajabe something me chop, not so chukun, Ranshin, then not that chancho, so much, no man lenji chukul, Lunduk Rari, Lamber, Dobendu, Drove Kamla, Deshi, Niboy, Chapjan Lenji, Chick, Jib, Marik, Betakbar, around Korsor, Ching de Le, Neuro Same, Samla, Dirtenchi, Stateri. I don't know, Rusim time, Chick assembly, Chuni teaching Yunayang. Chuni teaching the worship in Yoba Yunayang, then Milu Dania, Milu Zampa Tom the Digmar, Mili Chabarba, Maraso Nashi, Milu Rinpoche top over the top. They talk about something much, then a temperature don't give a singing in Jal. Jalwat some much of it, Dama too. Turbat some much in Yamsola. Yamsolani, did it? Dani. Dani Mari is in the toll. Dani Mari is in the toll. She, the Mari is in the toll to be never yard. The Dashan seems that Tam, Jella, Sabi Mechepe, Mushu Juni Pento, Jachum Bachetu, or Tesson, then Judici Nebo. You have got some check. Tarvatamchi Chimpe, comfort to be Chaja Memory, then. Milu Zampo and Rugamar, Milu Rinpoche. Milu Rinpoche Zampo and Rugamar, Gavation. Gavation and Jalot Samson Rugamar. Membership of Wangta, Torch Petit. Menurko Wang Shua Zamchi, Pengamar, Yamsalam. Yamsalam, Paladia, Yamsumala, Pentita, True Soar. Tesosatanga to Dordun and Yamsulankor. Nams Lower Chapala, Lansurki, Nesang, turn Calpocho. 인식 민지 튀어내 텔라디 히쳐와 태소마바지 고아래 대 여바이나 대 술신도 냠솔라나 똑같이 버지 줄래 제거리 너나 담배 쳐 냠솔라마를 따네 아주 상제고요 드미 바샤도 상 제바 상 제니 시제 산지 좀 된데 그 투디 예수마바 아주 연고요 태가주 줍샤래 대 줍샤지 더버 차발라 냠레 담배 쳐래 담배 쳐 술신도 더버 차발라 제나면 타마 맹아 던켄데 개වි신이래 어때 대대 손상 단 디나라 소요래 찹장 센직 말이 딱 봐라 심전 남네 산진이 언절로그로 테마타서 산진 테마티 dim이 바샤도 잡아라 dim이 바샤도 잡았었는데 년dim네 거대버려 장녀초도 년년이실라서 시럽세면 거르면 똑바래 똑바래 다테 dim이 바샤도 잡아 상거래 dim이 바샤도 잡아 상거 잡아라 냠렌디 디나라 소만나시 출시도 냠솔라나 dim이 바샤도 잡아 상 진이 이시 어느 조여래 근데 손상 뉴트로 상에 람디 땡스 도시 년도 양라 딱봐 예소송 그 동안 쇠드매 봐 년투다라 산지야 약간 람 걸대 버려 세주 조장 줍라 좋아이 칠lun데라 날 자가라 파비 요 주셔서도 슈퍼 간진 좀그 좁좁소 매버집에 와선 저집에 티드 담바 뇌때 출신도 냠살라와를 때네 꿀루텔로 좁아서게 배 간진 좀 차샤나 때문에 바르스물라 다음에 봐줘 배샤나 밀러레바 말발로선다 밀러레반다 쯧베기 때네 잠반 양알아서 단 돈은 뭐 좋아 대소서 로데 깔바 촌은 데르 juk 데데부 냠렌데 란 죽받지 점버치
The awakened activity of the Buddha includes the awakened activity of his body, the awakened activity of speech, and the awakened activity of mind. These are the activities of the Buddha, the primary ones of his awakened body, speech, and mind. And among these, which one is the most important for myself and all sentient beings to protect us from the temporary, immediate suffering and to be able to establish all of us in lasting, true, genuine happiness. Which among these three activities of the Buddha is the most important? It is the activity of the Buddha's awakened speech. This is the one that is the most crucial for us, because even if the Buddha is not physically present in the world, if his teachings remain in the world, it's not so different than if he were physically present, actually, having those teachings available. And if the Buddha were physically present in the world but did not teach, that even would not be of so much benefit to all of us. So the activity of the Buddha's awakened speech is the primary, the most important of his main awakened activities. And the words of the Buddha are preserved in the Kangyur, the translated words of the Buddha, and we also have the Tengyur, which are the translated commentaries of these great learned and accomplished masters, and even further commentaries that have been composed by the great masters of Tibet as well, not just from these texts that were translated from Indian languages, but if we look into the corpus of commentaries that expound upon the Buddha's words and the great commentaries of learned and accomplished Indian masters, there are tens of thousands of texts composed by Tibetan masters that expound upon these meanings. But if we were to really try to condense the meaning that is found in all of these precious teachings, we can say it really comes down to receiving what are called the ripening empowerments and the liberating pith instructions. And here among these two, we are in the context of receiving the pith instructions, the liberating instructions, guidance instructions. And this text here is a text which teaches the unchanging, the view and meditation of the definitive meaning. So that is what is presented here in this text, the view and the meditation of the definitive meaning. When we talk about the view, there are different ways of establishing the view. And when it comes to the way it's presented here in this text, we do not follow the tradition of using logic and reasoning and establishing something and then trying to refute it and then coming to decide what the conclusion is using these kinds of methods. That's not the method that we rely upon here. But nonetheless, we do, through this text, through these instructions, come to resolve the definitive meaning of the view and the meditation, the view of the great perfection, the view of Mahamudra, the view of the great middle way. We come to resolve this view on the basis of the pith instructions of the teacher, which are presented here in this instruction. So we're relying upon the pith instructions of the great masters, the great gurus of the past. That's the method for coming to resolve with certainty the view. And in this way, then, relying upon the great wisdom and realization that they themselves had, we receive their instructions, the instructions on the view and the meditation of the definitive meaning. So this text, the heart of the matter, it presents, as it says in the title, the unchanging convergence of the vital points that show exactly how to apply the view and the meditation of the definitive meaning. So here when we talk about the view of the definitive meaning, those of you who study in the Shedra, who are familiar with the studying in the monastic college in the Shedra, in that tradition, you know a little bit about this, coming to establish the view, and you know about the fact that there are many, many different views that are presented within the Buddhist tradition. We speak about here the view of the definitive meaning. That refers to the view of the great perfection, the view of Mahamudra, the view of the great middle way. But you know that there are many, many different inner subdivisions of the view that are presented according to many, many different systems of understanding, systems of philosophy. Those of you who study in the Shedra are familiar with this. You know that there are many, many different ways in which we come to examine and come to resolve the view. You know about the fact that there are presentations in which it is shown that one perspective of one view overcomes, subdues the lesser view, and the way in which we come to resolve which is the higher view and which is the lower one, and the way in which one view subdues and overcomes another. You are familiar with the ways in which one view actually refutes the view of another tradition and so on. Those of you who study in the Shedra are familiar with this. You know that there are so many different presentations of the view and of the meditation and of the conduct and the results of perfect awakening. But here, in particular, with this text, we are focusing upon the view and the meditation of the definitive meaning. And that then, again, refers to the view and the meditation of the great perfection, of Mahamudra, and of the great middle way. This is the view and the meditation of the definitive meaning. And so this text is an instruction in exactly how to apply these things. That's what this text is about, exactly how to apply the view and the meditation of the definitive meaning. That means it's really about the vital points, the key points of the way in which we apply the practice, the way in which we actually practice the view and the meditation of the definitive meaning. And the text begins by saying, to the awakened mind, utterly pure since the beginning, the uncontrived innate, the co-emergent Dharmakaya, which is the nature of all things, inconceivable in number, I bow down by realizing the spontaneously present Guru of natural awareness. Sugata essence is present as the nature of all beings, but due to co-emergent ignorance, they constantly obscure themselves and sink into the ocean of samsara. So to quickly liberate them, I shall now explain the innermost profound path. All sentient beings of the 6 classes, all of them have as their most basic nature, Buddha nature, suchness. It is present within all sentient beings as our basic nature. But that itself is not sufficient for the attainment of awakening. That itself is not sufficient to attain Buddhahood. We need to have the proper support for being able to practice a human body, but not just any old human body, not just an ordinary human body, but a precious human body, like all of us here have. A precious human body is a support that allows us to train in the profound Dharma and to put it into practice. But just having that precious, perfect support of a precious human body is also not sufficient. We need to meet with a teacher, a spiritual friend. And just meeting a teacher, likewise, is not enough. We have to receive the pith instructions of that teacher. And even receiving the teachings isn't enough. We actually have to practice them. So this is very important, to receive the teachings, but actually integrate them into our practice. Because the point is that we ourselves actually have to purify our ignorance, clear away our ignorance, the twofold ignorance. And we need actually the dualistic ignorance that we have, we need to completely purify that and completely clear that away in order to have the ability to liberate others. So if we ourselves overcome dualistic ignorance, then we have the capacity to be of benefit and to help others become free as well. And then we become able to really help beings directly, indirectly, and very indirectly even, to do all sorts of things that are of benefit and really can help sentient beings. We all have the cause of awakening. All sentient beings have that. And that is nothing other than Buddha nature, which is present as our most basic nature. But we need a lot of other conditions to come together in order for that to become manifest, fully manifest as the awakened state. We need not only to have a human body, but to have a precious human body. We need not only to have a precious human body, but to meet a qualified teacher. Not only to just meet a qualified teacher, but to receive the instructions of that teacher, to receive from him or her the ripening empowerments and the liberating instructions. And here we are receiving from among those two the liberating instructions. But again, just receiving the instructions doesn't cut it. You can't just receive them, you have to practice them. It has been said that if a shepherd practices, then the shepherd will become liberated. And if a pandita, a great scholar, does not practice, then he or she will remain wandering in samsara. It comes down to whether we practice or not. So we have to practice the Dharma, but to practice the Dharma, effectively, we need to rely upon certain key points, certain key instructions that are essential for our practice. So, of course, we need to listen to these teachings, and that's precisely what's presented in this text also. These key points, key instructions that are vital for us to be able to practice in a genuine and an authentic way. We need to not only listen to these instructions, but we have to trust them, and we have to be free from doubt about them. Because if we trust them, and if we're free from doubts, then we can practice. And if we practice without doubt and with genuine trust, then in fact, the practice will be of benefit and we can accomplish the state of awakening. That's the point of all of this, actually. We ourselves have to become Buddhas. That's the point. We need to clear away the two obscurations, and we need to perfectly unfold the two aspects of wisdom. That's what the word Buddha means. Purified perfection, purifying the two obscurations and perfecting the two aspects of wisdom. That is what makes us awakened. And we have to do that ourselves. That's our goal. That's why we're practicing, to become Buddhas ourselves. We need to rely upon all sorts of methods to do that. We need all sorts of circumstances and conditions to make it possible for us to do that. And one, of course, is to rely upon a spiritual teacher. We have to receive the instructions from a spiritual teacher. We have to receive these pith instructions, but we also have to put them into practice. It is said that sentient beings are Buddhas, but we are obscured by the temporary stains. And when those stains are purified, then our Buddhahood itself becomes manifest. So we are obscured by these temporary defilements, these temporary stains. What are they? They are what we call the two obscurations. One is the obscuration of the negative emotions, and the other is the cognitive obscuration. The obscuration of the negative emotions is just our regular old negative emotions, our afflictions. There are 6 root negative emotions that are often enumerated, and 20 subsidiary ones. These negative emotions themselves are our obscuration. And then the cognitive obscuration refers to holding on to concepts related to the 3 spheres of subject, object, and action. And we need to purify those 2 obscurations along with the habits, the habitual tendencies that we have that are associated with them. These we need to fully and completely purify. And when we do that, if we practice genuinely, then, in fact, that's precisely what happens. We purify the 2 obscurations, so then we become purified, and we perfect the 2 aspects of wisdom, and that is what makes us Buddhas, in fact. So in this way, purifying the 2 obscurations, the word in Tibetan for Buddha is Sangye. Sang means to purify the 2 obscurations. Gye means to unfold or perfect the 2 aspects of wisdom. And so when we do these things, we ourselves become Sangye, we become Buddhas. And that is the purpose, that is the point behind our practice. With dread for the painful abyss of the lower realms, our text continues, without attachment to the errant paths, nor to the peace of the Shravakas and Pratyekya Buddhas. So the state of the Shravakas and Pratyekya Buddhas is a state of peace. We don't want to become attached to that. And with the wish to attain perfect Buddhahood in a single lifetime, wise and fortunate ones, engage yourself in this practice. So the wish to attain perfect Buddhahood in a single lifetime, we actually have many examples of great beings who have done that in the past in India, in the past in Tibet, through receiving the empowerments, the ripening empowerments from their gurus, through receiving the liberating pith instructions, then they put these teachings into practice. Countless masters of the past have put these teachings into practice. And on that basis, through that practice, they have achieved accomplishment. They have achieved awakening. We can look to examples of masters of the past like Milarepa, like the example of Marpa. the 25 disciples of Guru Rinpoche, so many, countless beings actually we can look to as examples of those who have put these kind of instructions into practice, and through practicing these instructions have attained accomplishment within their lives. So, wise and most fortunate ones, engage yourself in this practice.
Emma ho. Malam dembe, malam chans, Gelon malam singing, Ki, Jelenas or Andola, Deta treat the much naronas, Yigilam, the Kulmanare, Tesota, Jeleki, Gelon malam la, Malam dembes, Cheranchawa, Umatala, Jugawa, Sambosa, Jen malam sambo, Tapiki, Jebu Kichara. Then Gelon Chutim de Demba, Tosam Gomsum Tuju Chupa, attended to Charamandi, give it sending royalty to Debare, Malam Chen, Kanki Chakzo, Usum Takum Nibu Yamlen Garden, Nurship songs, that Konki Narazon Double Dursa Sola, Pembi Chirtilla. Gelon malamchi, Jelena Sorandola, Chazo, Usum Kitavik, Nesan Salvo Sorona, the Shubari. Take Shubala Tene, didn't tell you the Damasumare, the Damata, the Marasu Ostanda, Tosum Guamsum, Kichu Shubari, the Katichum Bashidari. There's also Kangi Chazo, Usum Tagum Nibun Yamlin Gardum. No, she soon will lend that's when the bolos. Tatella, per country Jonla, Sanji shoot at Tarji Chimbotanga, Pemi Yonji, Nini, Tegu Chechi, the Chesate, Sanji shoot, Tinana, Chazo Osum Katawatella, Kamenseke, Tegu is Chimbachi, Tella, David Jalbosum, se Shaviore. What take it in negate? Chazo Osum to combat countries. That's an answer. Jelen Asorando, the Cation Tribu one should Shimboy Basosa, the Conque, the Suna Goni. I also do just on the Pimpi Childula. That in the Swar, that tell a chucks, chucks, Mahamudal. Chan, Tomberansi, the Janet Tella Medavos, Conde Lams de Chotam, Tony Jalam Medavena, Chaja Chambos. David Jalboy Ben Chambos, Jocks. Nancy Conde de Chotam, Ripacada, Yonsus open the Jocks, Zopa. Chambos, Yomebe Toxo, Yomebe Toxo, Chinton Chung, some 2 kg in Jobber Chavala, the Shinton Chamber in the Chambos. That Chakos, Uma, Tashi, Troba, Jet and Chalva. Then Tony needs something, Tony needs Nelu, Tashi, the Troba Jet and Chalva, Dr. Oma Chambos. That's the sword. There's one the Dagumchi, Nimbu, Nyamlen, Nature. That is where that is a carisma. Don't put it.
How wonderful is the aspiration of the one with that very name. So how wonderful is the aspiration of the one named aspiration. So this text was requested by a student of Tseli Nansar Grongdrol, who was a monk, and his name was Munlam. Munlam means aspiration. So then Tseli Nansar Grongdrol says, how wonderful is the aspiration of the one with that very name. And it was he actually who requested this text. He wrote a letter of request to Tseli Nansar Grongdrol asking him to compose this particular text, the heart of the matter. And so therefore in the text itself, Tseli Nansar Grongdrol says, you, Munlam, you, Mr. Aspiration, the one with the name Aspiration, who has such a wonderful aspiration, It is on the basis of your previous good deeds in previous lifetimes, the great virtue that you have accumulated in your past lives, and the aspirations also, the supportive aspirations that you made in your past lives. This then is what has brought you into this current situation of being born as a monk with good discipline, with the name aspiration, and who is very rich in study, reflection, and meditation, rich in those kind of qualities. So, and then on the basis of having that excellent circumstance, you were able to meet a qualified teacher and then be able to request in this way these instructions. So actually, this in this part of the text, Tsilin Natsar Rangdrol is praising the student named Munlam, named Aspiration, who was a monk who made the request for the text. And so he says, "How wonderful is the aspiration of the one with that very name, who asked me, please expound upon the key points of essential training in the view and meditation of Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and the Middle Way." So again, it is for the benefit of students, disciples, that this monk named Aspiration, Munlam, made the request to Tsilin Natsar Rangdrol to give these instructions. So his request was, please expound the key points of essential training in the view and meditation of Mahamudra and Dzogchen and the Middle Way. The key points, the key aspects of this practice, he's making the request for Tsilin Natsar Rangdrol to teach these very clearly and lucidly. And so this is why Tsilin Natsar Rangdrol composed this text. The text was given because of the request that was made by this disciple named Aspiration, Munlam, this monk. And since we now have this text, which is such a helpful and wonderful support for our own study, our own reflection, and our meditation, we have to acknowledge how incredibly kind it was of him to make that request and of Tsilin Natsar Rangdrol to fulfill it. So it's very kind to us, so that we have this excellent text. And so he says, please expound upon the key points of the essential training in the view and meditation of Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and the Middle Way. And in response to this, I offer this small token of reply, Tsilin Natsar Rangdrol says. In the snowy land of Tibet, the Buddha Dharma spread and flourished, and the Tibetan people in general have a lot of faith in the Buddhist teachings. They have a lot of faith, really heartfelt faith in the Buddha Dharma. But in particular, within or among all of the teachings of the Buddha Dharma that are present in Tibet, there is a special faith for the teachings of Mahamudra and the teachings of Dzogchen, the Great Perfection, as well as those of the Great Middle Way. These three, Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and the Great Middle Way, are held to be the king of views, the highest, the king of views. And they are renowned in this way within Tibet. And because Tsilin Natsar Rangdrol was a master who was extremely learned and extremely realized, who had great wisdom and great accomplishment, then he then offers this text. He has composed this text which elucidate the key points of these three kingly views of Mahamudra and the Great Perfection and the Great Middle Way. Mahamudra, literally translated, would mean the Great Seal. And here we talk about a seal because it means that all phenomena are sealed by emptiness. There is no phenomena that goes beyond the seal of emptiness. There is no thing which is not empty. So that's why the word seal, mudra, is part of the word of this practice of Mahamudra. And it is great because it is the king of views, the highest view, which teaches that all phenomena are naturally sealed by emptiness. And then we speak about the Great Perfection. All phenomena of appearance and existence, all phenomena within samsara and nirvana are perfected within primordially pure Rigpa. And so since they are perfected, it is called the Great Perfection, That's the aspect of dzok, means perfection. And then chen here means great, the great perfection. And it is great because it overcomes or conquers in a single moment all afflictive emotions, great, middle, and small. Any kind of affliction is conquered in a single moment, and therefore it is great. So in this way we speak about the great perfection. And then the middle way, the great middle way here refers to a view which is in the middle, in the sense of being beyond the 4 extremes and the 8 conceptual elaborations. Being beyond those extremes and those elaborations, it is said to be the middle. It is free from them. This is the view of emptiness, which is in union with compassion. The unity of emptiness and compassion, this indivisibility of emptiness and compassion, which is itself the natural state. This is the great middle way, the middle which is beyond the extremes, the 4 extremes or the 8 conceptual elaborations. And so we speak here also of the great middle way.
균돌라 소바는 계속하라. 로와 메인은 셰자센들 장거요래. 그래서 자 공부를 소환하시 드라미슈 짜치비 갑라 셰제 나네야 즉 가르쳐 첩치션더부터 체리 빠차요래. 체리 빠게 치송 율기 남샤 걸라 장바야 유릉부 제발에 장변 제불라야 고도야 야보여 바래 나생기 남샤 거르데 산제발레 배추보래 충보래 셰자 그래서 단 도르드나 공부를 소환하시 최담제 동반님의 인출티 땡진 전중 마인 바 총가여바 마인도 대체로 동이 마인 바 총가여바 마인도 소환하시 맞을 때 계획 잡아잖아야 대들 나와 최담제 동이 땡중에 봐 알라 거발레벨에 깔라가고요 말에 이나야 돈이 땡중 무슨 냠수 용거요 돈이 닌지 용 무슨 냠수 용어 샤발라 탑치차 짐바땅 추tim송 소바금 준주쌈 얌버샤 근데 디니 탑태당 뜨네 탑중 샤랍 내로 또 어떻게 해요 탑시 야마타버잖아 탑다 샤랍이 야마타버던 냠수란 거요 여바이 말에 대단시 갈보체 이바당 대대감들 간시 두숨 잘군치 충코르코르웬 남라네 타다 심젠 산체 서 거처 코나 유 인매장 durche samkal thate pe durche chojan na cho pa malu jarwe theneni inchir sangi yu meja lamche tenta lam ni ta debur ngosu jorje pa tekpa chungding chen borro tham sanji ndobar thun swar tene tamba toji che ngobar zo sanje ne donta tene sanje ne sabshi tredelo esal dumache swar tadu samrotana theba sunga kaptenala theba sunke namsha chasaje ngus tensare sabshi segente sabjing shiwa chongor ate katambo katambo sabshi tredel segente tasheta tobajata travate sonju omaba chembeke taben esa tabe shoksol salva segente 상가 도르제테 봐. 어서 찾으신 뭐 어서 좀 봐. 소하래. 대소사 산지 그 무슨 샬네 땡 차르래. 땡 차와래라 땡 감데리야 가르송도서나 최섬제 산지게 최주 콜로 담단을 막 간대지 거라 있나요. 된들라 짐니 상술당 친이 예술 땡 샤바지래. 이나야 dorche ke lo ta wang pa le tene kosul manda ma cha nyongsul manda tene nyong yo bare sa soare te so sa den te kapsala ya tata dorche samka tate ta de so sharan dawa ja ko mendo tela tene tomong te ba nyarang te ba ta te ba chi de kapdel te ba chungo tekpa dringbu, tekpa chenpo si ta tinda shayo pares. Wanja nyanlam yimin chi che chi tek chen cho, ta lam la su su longpa chi lan doko cho na, lam mandawa, lam chen, tene lam chen tang, tene lam chen sen ti lamshen le chimba ina te gor chewa tang kangar chunga kal chunga tene lam chung chung tang lakbar tu sanglam le chimba ina sang lam la tene je joya jobol lep tuba yang ya jen parche yang ma boyo batene ko ta jiten chakpare beti shin tu tomo te pala parchen te pati tes kali khapata parchen te pala sangake lam de shindu deshu nyurwa yena ya kechala nyanchawa yinbe yinsul tembare.
It's helpful to us something that the great master Nagarjuna said in the past. These days, if we think about in the 21st century, we learn all sorts of things. There's all sorts of topics of knowledge that we learn about as human beings, right? Animals are different, but as humans, there's so many different things that we can come to study and to learn about. And here in the 21st century, specifically, among the things that people could learn about, one that has become very popular and very widespread is science. A lot of people are really interested in learning about science, right? And the scientific teachings, or the scientific presentation on the things in the outer world is very detailed. They spent many, many years studying the world around us and the phenomena in the world around us. And they have a very detailed presentation, and actually a good one, about the way things exist outwardly in the outer world because of having spent such a long time studying that. But when it comes to the inner world of our mind, there we look to the Buddha Dharma, because that's where we find a very detailed presentation of the inner world, the experience of the mind. And one thing that Nagarjuna taught which is very, very profound and beneficial. He said there is not a single phenomenon which is not dependently originated, and therefore there is not a single thing which is not empty. This is what Nagarjuna said. And actually, if we investigate, if we examine using logic and reasoning, if we examine all of these things that appear to us right now, we can come to resolve the fact that they are empty, independently originated. This is maybe not so difficult to come to resolve through reasoning, but it's something that we also have to experience. That's the thing. We have to have a direct experience of the fact that all of these phenomena are empty, independently originated. And to be able to really come to that genuine experience of things as being in this way, we can rely upon many different methods, like the methods of the first 5 of the 6 perfections, the method of generosity and discipline and patience, diligence, meditative concentration. These methods, together with that which comes out of method, which is wisdom, the wisdom that arises out of method, that wisdom which is realizing the natural state, those together we have to bring together and practice as a unity in order to really become able to have a genuine direct personal experience of the way things actually are. And so here it's mentioned in the text, the sole purpose of the different turnings of the Dharma wheels by the victorious ones of the 3 times is to establish sentient beings in the state of Buddhahood. But due to the diverse mentalities and fortunes of those disciples to be tamed, the teachings to tame them are also different. Since all are the activity of the victorious ones, there are indeed no good or bad teachings. Nevertheless, by being the support for the path itself, or connecting you with the fruition in actuality, the teachings renowned as the lesser, medium, and greater vehicles are all alike in that through them you realize enlightenment. So here, when the Buddha first awakened, one of the very first statements that the Buddha made, actually, he said, I have realized a nectar-like dharma, which is profound and peaceful, which is perfect simplicity, luminous, and uncompounded. That was the statement he made. And in fact, in that statement, we can find the key points of all three turnings of the wheel of the Dharma. That the Buddha himself, in his lifetime, the first words that he spoke after awakening, the key points of all three vehicles of Dharma are pointed out there. With this statement, profound and peaceful, we can understand this to refer to the key points of the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma. The word simplicity or freedom from complexity refers then to the path of the middle way, which is the path of freedom from the four extremes and 8 conceptual complexities, the intermediate turning, the second turning of the wheel of the Dharma. And then, with the word luminous, we can understand the key points of the teachings of the Vajrayana, actually, the luminous Mahamudra, the luminous great perfection. So, in fact, the Buddha, in that first statement that he made upon awakening, we can find the key points of all of the teachings, of all of the different turnings of the wheel of the Buddha Dharma. And here, in the text, it's mentioned also very clearly that the Buddha taught the Dharma in 3 different turnings of the wheel of the Dharma, but the point of all of them is to purify our 2 obscurations and to bring about the perfection of the 2 wisdoms. That's what's taught. How to do that, and the fact that we need to do that, is precisely what we find taught in all of the turnings of the wheel of Dharma. Simply, it is on the basis of different capacities of different beings, different disciples, different mindsets, different interests and inclinations. On the basis of that, we undergo different practices and different experiences. But it's not that the point of these teachings are somehow different. That's what it's mentioned here in the text. It's quite clear, actually. I don't need to even explain so much about it because the words in the text are extremely, extremely clear. That whether it is the fundamental vehicle of the Buddha Dharma or the teachings of the vehicle of the perfections or the teachings of the Vajrayana, all of those, as it says here, the teachings which are renowned as the lesser, medium, and greater vehicles, they are all alike in that through them you realize enlightenment. That's what it says here. Here's an example. If you want to go somewhere, if you want to take a path to go somewhere, so here let me read another verse from the text. But it is through the special quality of being a short path that the greater vehicle is exceedingly superior. Yet superior to it, the path of mantra is even higher and amazingly unique. So if you want to go somewhere, to some country, you want to take a trip to some place, then there's usually more than one road to get there. And they're different kinds of roads. There's the highway. It's big. It maybe takes a while to get there following this major road, but it's a pretty smooth ride. It's a pretty easy path. Sometimes there's a smaller road, and sometimes you can get there faster on the smaller road, but it's windy, right? And then sometimes there's a secret pathway to get somewhere. And the secret pathway is the fastest way there. But you might encounter all sorts of dangers and obstacles on that path. So this is the example. So just like that, actually, following the fundamental vehicle of the Buddha's teachings or following the vehicle of the perfections, these are longer paths. They lead to the result, but they are longer paths. The path of Vajrayana is swift, it's fast, it is said to be the swift and blissful path, and yet it is said while it has great benefits, there is also potentially great danger in following that path.
더 드나 최생의 가래 제바체나 콘데 람숨 주되비 최 콘데 람숨 주되비 최 낭솔된 내솔 낭솔 주니 지 낭솔 내솔 주니 지다와 내솔 낭솔 주니 낭솔된 내솔 건설된 된담 단나다 양다 야나 콘데 람숨 주되비 탐지 최 양 최是下家양 최是고숨 쥐발라 고숨 쥐발라 최 대야 존도나 체메 시윌람 처음에봐 룡아 예숨 주고네 심지 술라야 처음에 지신 랑 룡아 예숨 시발라네봐 랑 룡아 예숨 시발라네신 심지 술라야 무슈 예숨네 처음에 지봐 대체 텔레체 체메 시블람 체와티 류고건의 체와 마크건 서 예주건 서지 체와 타다 빵라 텔라 또 최체바 세종 아주 최체 생각해 타마 냠서 나서도 미게 왜 쭈뽕게 레 세 미게 쭈뽕아치 제토바이나 땅 아주 최체예요 아주 최체요. 최체 신기요. 최체 두고요. 최체요. 몇개 쭉 가요로 하지. 저야 셰 참아야 제 스스로야 네네 차 마보체 쳐봐 마보 그 전에 결혼이 안에 랍 돌아 마르고 서브 그 악바이 랍 토르조징 좀 너나 전다 참아 주소 가서 나고 거기 이거 납선 로데가 온지 심바이나 땅 아주 최최신의 제도요. 땅난 그 최최신의 제도다 타마데 매게 주봉게 레 생들 텔레차와 빵 체미세 대가지 처차와 미세버다. 땅 아주 처음에 지킨 줄 거래. 체메 시웰람 또 최최 타마데 다 텔레야프 달로 땅에 차와 매빠짜 마치 펜디도 맞지 개와주 당돌라 매개 와주 도다르도 셈내빵 개와주디 멘타도 땡데 당돌라 네 렘베 대바신 분냠래 파신도 도응 보시 렘베 탑제베렘바 셔럽 조거렘바 드레스는 냠살아와이나 아니 통통라 똑바쳐버지 줄을 째네 아니 조마탑도요 대선선 최 제발래서 제술 장야도 가르쳐 버려 제술 최 제발래서 제술 장야도 가르 제술 나네야 돼 가르치셔도 꿀렁들 꿀렁야고 여바예나 무슨 냠래 제술 듣다 보지 매네요 꿀렁 뒤기 네베 무슨 냠래 대야랑신 그 샤마찬 차 반드 다타 마타라고 제랭그 살나 살보 예멘라고 여바 예나야 꿀렁 나버다 보지 여바 예나 뒤네베기 무슨 냠래 대야 그 샤마찬 꿀렁 마타 바지 여바 예나 제 냠래 지야게 레게 시라게 다타보 안에 제림케 살나 살보 여바 예나 꿀렁데 마타 바예나 무슨 냠래 대야 시라 그다보 자요 말 그래서 꿀렁다 하점 가르쳐 버려 다 들이 추섬 들으셔긴
We practice the Dharma, but what is the Dharma, actually, in short? What do we understand by that term, the Dharma? Well, we can talk about it as referring to the phenomena of samsara and nirvana and the path. Dharma can refer to phenomena in that way. Or we can talk about the natural state, Dharma referring to the natural state of things just as they are, their nature, or all phenomena in their great variety. We can also say that the Dharma refers to the presentation of the relative as well as that of the ultimate, the way things appear, and actually their ultimate true nature, the way they actually are. The phenomena of samsara, nirvana, and the path. We can say that the word dharma, so the dharmas, actually the phenomena of samsara, nirvana, and the path. We can say that the word dharma also refers to objects of knowledge, what we can come to know. And also we can say that the word Dharma here means transformation, changing, transforming our body, speech, and mind into something more pure. In short, then, another way that we could think about the Dharma, or we could understand what is meant by the Dharma, is not harming, a path of not harming and coming to peace. A peaceful and non-harming path. That is what the Dharma is. Not harmful in the sense of not harming anyone, physically, verbally, or mentally. Anyone, any sentient being. Not physically, verbally, or mentally harming any sentient being at all. Not directly harming, not indirectly harming, not even very indirectly harming. Being totally free from harming any being at all. That, then, we can say, is a path that is free from harm, and that is the Dharma. And when we behave in that way, that makes us peaceful. That makes our own body, our own speech, and our own mind peaceful when we refrain from physically, verbally, or mentally harming others. So in this way, then, the Dharma, we can say, actually is a path which is free from harm and a path of peace, of calm. So not harming sentient beings is so important, avoiding all harm, physical, verbal, and mental harm. If we avoid physically, verbally, and mentally harming beings, we can say that we're practicing the Dharma. If you're just doing that, actually, you can say that can constitute Dharma practice. So what is the most basic, like, if you don't have this, you're not practicing the Dharma? It comes down to avoiding the 10 non-virtues. We can say this is the most sort of fundamental, basic level of Dharma practice, avoiding the 10 non-virtues. If we're not doing that, we can't really say that we're practicing the Dharma, whatever else we may be doing. If we are avoiding the 10 non-virtues, we can say that we know the Dharma. If we know how to avoid the 10 non-virtues, we can say that we know the Dharma. We can say that we can practice the Dharma if we can avoid those 10 non-virtues, and we can say we are practicing the Dharma if we are avoiding the 10 non-virtues of body, of speech, and of mind. If, on the other hand, we are lying and we are speaking harshly to people and we are, engaging in these whatever among these 10 non-virtuous deeds, and at the same time we are wearing the red and yellow robes and saying that we're a monk or a nun, or we're wearing the white robes and saying that we're a ngakpa, a lay practitioner, keeping our hair in a nice top knot, and then we are lying and we're speaking harshly and we're, practicing these 10 non-virtues, that is not Dharma practice. We might look like a Dharma practitioner because of how we are presenting ourselves, but what we do is not the Dharma. In order to practice the Dharma, at the very least, we have to avoid the 10 non-virtues. At the very least, we have to be avoiding those things to even be able to say that we're practicing the Dharma. And so we have to avoid harming others. This is so important. That's kind of the most basic aspect of Dharma practice is don't harm others and remain in a state of peace. Again, not physically, verbally, or mentally harming others brings our own body, speech, and mind into a state of peace, of calm. And so that's the most fundamental, basic aspect of our practice. Then on top of that, we can do other things, right? In addition to avoiding harm, we could also do helpful things. We could also work to benefit others. We should actually avoid the 10 non-virtues as if they were poison. Avoid the 10 non-virtues like poison, and take up the 10 virtues, the opposite of the 10 non-virtuous deeds, take up those 10 virtues as if they were medicine. Practice the 6 perfections. Practice the 4 means of magnetizing. Do the practices of the generation stage, which is the aspect of method, and the perfection stage, which is the aspect of wisdom. Engage in those practices, and on top of this basic foundation of avoiding the 10 non-virtues. And if we practice like that, if we take up all of these practices, then of course, in a very short time, we will come to gain unique realization, and we will progress in the path. So it's really essential that we know how to practice the Dharma. Sometimes it's said that even more than practicing is knowing how to practice correctly. We have to know actually what we're doing in order to be able to practice correctly. And the most important thing about knowing how to practice correctly, the most important thing is your motivation. That's the most important. If your motivation is good, then your practice is good. If the details of the practice are not perfect, if your pronunciation isn't that great when you're reciting something, if your visualization isn't that clear when you're doing generation stage practice, as long as your motivation is good, the practice is good. As long as your motivation is genuine, the practice is genuine. If your motivation is not good, and your pronunciation is perfect, and your visualization is absolutely perfect, totally clear, but you have a poor motivation, that's not genuine practice. The main part of the practice is not real. It's not genuine. You're missing something. So again, our motivation is essential. It's absolutely essential. It's kind of the most important point, actually, is that whatever we do in our practice, we do with a good motivation. And I will conclude the Dharma teaching here today.
Pela tangchila sanji kunye juyo bari sanji kunye juyo tu tini dhrupa chiga sanji kudila charpa pamna kudu chola dosari san hamte sigiri tinte chi kapsha bari chika achi tinte kapna maru wari sanji ula tinte kapna tinte mizan wari chika pa sal bari nikala sondam chikpa chungari.
There's in the Kunzang Lame Shilung, the words of my perfect teacher, it's explained very clearly the importance of motivation. There's a really nice account there. So it's a story. There was in Tibet, on a large empty plain, there was an image of the Buddha. And someone came across that image of the Buddha and said, oh, it's not nice for the image of the Buddha to just be sitting out here in the middle of this plain. It might rain, and that would be bad. So they covered the Buddha with some leather from a shoe, and because they wanted the image of the Buddha to be out of the rain. And then somebody else came along and said, what an impure thing to put on top of the Buddha. We have to get rid of it, and they took it away. And both of them accumulated a lot of merit. Both. Why? Because the motivation. The motivation. It's very clear here that the most important thing is the motivation.
Ranju's chant book, page 23. Namso de chozon zazan jawa janzo ye kanyen cheje zembe nyema jen sanzon danzen dende jet male yonso dro barajen jelo. Back to page 19. Gozan dorje janje mejen tenjen zabe lama yenje manam ganda bade zadan tendere do barajo zonan de yedan jezebanya damne nyebe danamba yegana jembala duba yezebe fulendo Rovarajo, Janjo, Sanjo, Rinpoche, Maja, Banaje, Bamibaya, Gonde, Bevarajo, Indije, Leja, Jave, Teleba, Karma, Bade, Timbeni, Kunjo, Jaji, Jimeja, Tabara, Bebe, Traje jo drube derjen jazo golo jo gando jo de jale relo jo de gando jabba pende gezen jebe traje jo damba jeden gazo jamba dan temba nyu shendoza tenzen pano shendo temba Temba yurene bedrashishu.
Thank you. We all one we all want, that means we all interest to study Dharma, and we all want to practice Dharma, and we like to serve and help to other, whoever want to have knowledge of Dharma. So we are one, and many of you came from far, and to get teaching, and that make me very happy. So we are together here, and the monastery, we offer a simple lunch under this ground. So after this, please come down and to enjoy the lunch. And the lunch is made by love. So love and respect. So please have lunch. And also afternoon, Lama Tenzin will lead teaching after the lunch. And we need to use our seminary time, this precious time, study, practice, and discussion. So this is important. Amro Didi Baini Dajo, yeah, okay, Dajo Bai, Dajo. Didi Baini, no. Amro Kochela Chiliaro, Matia Wala, Tomaro, Dharma ko शिक्षा लिँदै आयो तपाईहरु ज्ञानी भएर आयो हाम्रो नेपालमा तीर्थ धेरै छ गुम्बा अनि धर्ममा विश्वास भएको धेरै छ तर धर्मको शिक्षा लिनेको आशा धेरै गर्दैन अब हामी धर्मको शिक्षा चाहियो धर्मको शिक्षाको दानी हुने पर्यो अब बुद्ध भगवानको जन्मस्थानमा जन्म भएर बुद्धको शिक्षाको दानी हुने पर्यो त्यसै कारणले आज तपाईहरु यहाँ शिक्षा लिने आउनुभयो राम्रो भयो भोलि पनि ढिलो नगर्नुहोस् टाइममा आउनुहोस् म पनि भोलि टाइममा आउँछु हामी मेडिटेसन सँगै गरौँ अनि अहिले तल भजन छ भजनमा पाल्नुहोस् तर यसको तलमा सबै अनि त्यसको पछि लामा तेन्जिलाले 2 बजे होला 2:30 बजे तिर होला हामी
What time?
3 बजे अहिले भजन सिधेर 3 बजेमा लामा तेन्जिल सम्बल यहाँ शिक्षा दिने हुन्छ तपाईं सबै आउनुहोस् 3 o'clock Lama Tenzin will teach so please come now we all come to have the very full of loves food full of loves food so I like to show please come down this way